Greetings, blessings, people. You're locked into the Big Bad Station, ArawakRadio.com, with yours truly, DJKat the Katalyst. And of course, we are here with the founder of the Chineke
Hi everyone,
Orchestra.
it's great to have an opportunity to speak with you even though I can't see you. I'm Chichi Wanoku, I'm the double bassist and founder, artistic and executive director of the Chineke Orchestra.
Wow, what an introduction. So of course, like I said to you before we spoke, I've been kind of following yourself now for a good while and kind of understanding a little bits and pieces, but I'm really fascinated to know, how did you kind of come up with the Chineke Orchestra and come up with what you actually do, because there's so much behind you. Tell us a little bit more.
I had been in the classical music industry for more than 3 decades.
Yeah.
No, I'm not 300 years old, but it feels like that sometimes. For more than 3 decades. I was always the only person of colour, not just on the stage, but there was no other black person in the entire building, in the audience, backstage, front of house, the composers of the music we played. I was just sort of like the odd one out. Yeah. All the time, and I was fairly high up in my job because I was a principal player and I was performing on the international concert platform, so I had a big profile. And it got to the point where the previous culture minister, Ed Vaizey, he was on David Cameron's cabinet, started to call me into his office in Westminster to ask me why they only ever saw me regularly on the international concert platform, classical music concert platform. And what he meant was the only black person. Yeah. and so, you know, I didn't have the answers. And it's not because I wasn't aware. Of course I was aware. But I never, ever asked my colleagues throughout those more than 30 years how they felt about it. What were their feelings about inclusion and diversity? And when people ask me now why I didn't have those conversations, I think it was because the moment didn't ever feel right, and I didn't know how they felt, and I did not want to come across as being either defensive or paranoid. So at the time, it was easier not to have the conversation. Now I can't stop talking about it, you know, because it's so... And when I created Chineke in September 2015, the time was right. The world was ready for it. If I tried to create the orchestra 10 years before, it would not have gone down, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to create a space where young people, young professionals, old professionals of colour, of ethnicities that are not only the white ethnicity, where everyone could feel that they could step into this space and know that they belong.
Definitely, 100% agree. I understand as well what you're saying about being the only person of colour, and kind of expressing like what we feel and what we think. So it's really interesting to see that obviously it still happened then, and it's still here and there does a lot happen now. And I wanted to know, has it changed throughout the period of years that you've been actually doing the orchestra?
You know what? It has. Okay, great. We're beginning to see a shift. Yeah. and you know, for example, in 2015, I created a junior orchestra at the same time as the professional orchestra. Yeah. And young cellists like Sheku Kenny-Mason, you've probably heard of him. Yeah. He's the cellist that played at Prince Harry and Meghan's wedding. Yeah. And he's now a global superstar. Yeah. He was 16 at the time of our first concert, and he was the principal cello of the Chineke Junior Orchestra. And he also sat in the Chineke Orchestra, professional orchestra. He sat number 4 or something, because he was from a distance you could see what great talent this young man was. Now, we have so many young people with great talent. It's not about the lack of talent, it's about the lack of opportunity. Yeah. And so he's had some incredible opportunities laid in front of him that we've given him, and then the royal wedding, and look what's happened. And you know, this is absolutely exciting. But at the time of our first concert in 2015, there's an orchestra in the country called the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, where it's an orchestra of young people from the ages of 11 to 18, and it's the most incredibly high standard orchestra, 165 kids. And I think at around the time when Chineke was being created, there was only ever one or maximum 2 kids of colour in that orchestra. This year, there's 10.
Wow. Okay.
So this is not to say that there couldn't have been 10 or even 20, 6.5 years ago, but young people were not even coming forward to apply for the National Youth Orchestra, because they would take one look at it and think, well, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
And not just the kids, the parents don't want their children to go somewhere where they might not feel welcome.
Yeah.
And so it's a sort of massive knock-on effect all the way around. And so by the very first performance day of the Chineke Orchestra, our launch day, we had the junior orchestra performing in the afternoon and the professional orchestra performing in the evening at the South Bank Centre in London. Both audiences were packed out. Both sets of audiences were hugely diverse. I'd never seen such a diverse audience at any concert in my entire career. Wow. So this was clearly an indication that something needed to be done. And boy, oh boy, it's had a big effect. Now we're seeing at the conservatoires, tertiary level education, when you leave school and you go to university, if you want to go to study at the Royal Northern College of Music in or Royal Birmingham or Royal Academy in London, now there's about 4 times as many black students applying to tertiary level education. So that tells me that I call it the Chineke effect.
Oh, okay, yeah. Wow.
Every single concert we play, right from day one, we include a piece of music that's been written by a composer of relative ethnicity. I'm talking about black composers who can stand alongside Beethoven, Mozart, etc. Yeah. Because none of us ever learned about black composers. We didn't even know they existed. And I've done all this research and found all these incredible composers of colour throughout the last 300-400 years.
Yeah.
They've always been there. They've always just been silenced.
Yeah.
Now what's happening, we always play music by a black composer as well as white composer. And now the other big orchestras, from the London Symphony Orchestra, the London Philharmonic Orchestra, the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, they are all now taking a leaf out of our book, looking at the repertoire that we're playing, and starting to play it as well.
Wow.
So that tells me something is really changing.
Definitely. You know what? When you're talking, I've got a smile from this side to the next side. No, I really have, because usually when people think of playing in an orchestra, they usually think of it's too posh for them, or it's not relative to us. And the fact that you've actually done that, and then you found black composers, is just amazing, absolutely amazing. And when it comes when it comes to that, and when you see, especially young people, kind of getting into it, kind of understanding the composers, how does it make you feel? Because I'm feeling blessed just listening to you.
Well, you know what? What it does is it reasserts us into the industry of classical music, to know that we were always there, because we were, we're often told, oh, well, it's not really your sort of music, is it? And, oh, black people are not really very good at classical. Come on.
Yeah.
We've always been there. We've just been silenced, covered up, neglected, left out, ignored. Unless you're, tenacious and sort of, I'm one of those people that, my parents used to say, remind us, well, I think most black parents, you've got to be twice as good to get half as far.
Yeah.
And I'm such a literal person. I just worked my backside off, and I would be so prepared for anything I was asked to do. And I would turn up to first rehearsals. I would be concert ready. I did not allow myself to make a single mistake, even in rehearsals. And so I gained a very high level reputation. And the thing is, of course, I've got high standards, but I would be regularly aware of my white colleagues not being that, as outstanding as I was, and just getting away with it, But I know I couldn't have got away with it if I was just at that level,
Yeah.
And why do we have to have that extra pressure on us all the time to be outstanding?
Yeah.
In order to be included, and this is what I'm really trying to address, because we need to be able to be normal. We need to be allowed to make mistakes like everybody else. I mean, how else do people learn? If you're never allowed to make a mistake, you don't ever truly learn things. Making mistakes is part of our education. It helps us to learn things better. I don't suggest people go out deliberately to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You go out and try to do your best. But when you make a mistake, you know how to recover from it, and you improve from having learned from that mistake. But half of the time, black people, if we make a mistake, we're never invited back.
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's just negative on our heads. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to be able to allow to be normal like everybody else.
Yeah, definitely agree. And with yourself now, what instruments do you play?
Professional double bass player. In an orchestra, you play one instrument.
Yeah.
We don't do like one man band. There's the people who play the violin, the people who play the cello, the people who play the trumpet. I play the double bass.
Yeah, because I read somewhere that you've also played the piano, so that's why I was kind of.
Oh yeah, sure. I think most people play something as a second instrument. Yeah, okay. I did start on the piano, the recorder and the piano, but I didn't become a professional pianist. The piano was an incredible backup instrument.
Yeah.
And when you play the piano, you learn to read all the clefs and everything, but I specialized on the double bass.
Wow. And
I wish I'd kept my piano practice up, because no one has to listen to me play the piano. I don't practice properly on the piano, but I'm a professional double bassist.
Wow. And with instruments now, of course, there's a lot of digital music out there, a lot of digital kind of aspects, and young people are kind of drawn to kind of just downloading or looking at things. Do you think that live music and kind of learning an instrument is coming back slowly?
Well, I don't think it ever went away.
Yeah.
But I just digital options became available. I don't think people have never stopped learning live instruments and giving live concerts, and I think we've got so many options now. It's very exciting, but it's also very difficult for young people to know what to do, because they just think, I don't have to do that. I can just press a button and hear it.
Yeah.
The consumer society, which I think is a shame. I think every child should learn to play an instrument. Making music, making sounds. Were the first form of communication in the world before we all had this sophisticated language that we speak in all our countries. And I think music is an incredible form of communication when people make music together. And I think it's highly underestimated, the power of music. I feel that, playing an instrument and being a musician makes me a better person. It's a form of communication. I can go and play a concert in Tokyo in Japan. I can go and play in Taiwan, I can go and play in Timbuktu without speaking a word of the language in those countries, but I can communicate with them through music, because I'm playing music, and they can listen to me and they can respond to my music, and then we understand what each other's saying.
Yeah, definitely. And, with young people now, up and coming, what kind of advice would you give them if they wanted to start a new instrument, or they wanted to learn music actually live and hold that instrument? What kind of advice would you give?
I'd tell them to badger their teachers at school to what because an awful lot of state schools now have had music programs just taken out of the state schools, removed, which is terrible. Write to your MP and demand that your school offers music, and get the peripatetic teachers back into the schools that teach at the schools, paid for by the schools, the state schools I'm talking about, and also plead with your parents to let you do it as well. And of course, every child that learns an instrument is not going to become a professional musician, but I just feel that the skills that one learns from learning an instrument, perseverance, patience, attention to detail, listening, coordination, teamwork, all of those things you learn when you learn to play an instrument and play in a group at school or wherever. You learn to teamwork. You learn to listen to each other, not just to yourself. These are skills that no other subject teaches you. This is why it's so important to learn a musical instrument.
Definitely, 100%. And you know, with yourself now, who would you kind of recommend for somebody to listen to? Say if they've never really heard kind of the music that you play or anything. What would you kind of recommend that they should listen to?
Well, I'd go to Spotify or YouTube and check out Chineke Orchestra.
Yeah.
Everything we play is wonderful. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Chineke spelled CHIN for November, EKE exclamation mark Orchestra.
Love it.
And if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see lots of concerts with us playing, or you can go and hear us, recordings of us.
Wow.
And we're also an orchestra that has done a bit of crossing over. As you know, we've just launched an album with Bob Marley and the Wailers, which is fantastic. And so it's Bob Marley and the Wailers, 10 of his top pieces, top tracks, where there has been an arrangement of fantastic strings arrangement. So the string players from the Chineke Orchestra recorded these wonderful arrangements that have overlaid the Bob Marley and the Wailers, and it's just gone straight into the A-list radio, BBC Radio 2, and we're performing some of them at Birmingham Town Hall on Tuesday the 26th with actually Skip Marley, the grandson of Bob, will be there singing with us.
Wow.
And the first part of the concert will be classical music by 2 black composers, and the second part of after the interval, it's all Bob Marley.
Wow.
Come.
Wow.
Yeah. So to cross over a bit, we like to blend the genres, and they jolly well work together really well.
Definitely. And on the radio, I know people will ask, how can people kind of get involved, or is there an opportunity to get involved in the Chineke Orchestra or the foundation?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're always looking for people to come and work with us on the admin team, and also for those if there are any young people or older people who already play instruments and would like to be considered for either the junior orchestra or the professional orchestra, they can write to me asking for an audition. And you again, if you go to our website, www.chineke.org, you can write to us. And if you're a junior player, it goes from age 11 up to the end of full-time education, so in some cases age 22.
Wow.
If you're a string player, you need to be grade 6 and above, and those people who already play instruments will know what that means. And if you're a wind and brass player, you'd need to be around the grade 8 area. And then look out also in the next year, we're looking to start a beginners orchestra, which is very exciting. We're not quite sure how that's going to work, but I think it's really important that we open the doors to beginners as well.
Wow. I'm so excited just to hear what you've been getting up to, what you've been doing, and I just want to say thank you for you to actually be doing that, because it's I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking, and it's so nice to hear.
Well, thank you. Well, this is the sort of thing I get up for in the morning. I've never been, so this will be my legacy.
Thank you again for your time. I know you're such a busy person, and I really do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for your interest.
Anytime. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Bye.
Bye. Bye.